Welcome to another video from Beckley Rose Academy. I hope everyone is doing well. On this video, we want to go into detail on the return on investment of our first rent-to-rent property. So there's a lot of myths online on how much to expect on a rent-to-rent, what are the margins, what are the returns on investment. But we thought it would be great to actually go into our numbers, go into our Excel and break down what to expect. But before we get into the video, if you haven't yet subscribed, hit the subscribe button, leave a comment. If you have any questions or topics that you would like us to discuss, we'll be more than happy to. So stay tuned and we'll get started.
So, yes, we're going to look at our return on investment. So a question I have for you then, Olu, is how much did we invest in our first property? What are the numbers on that?
Okay. I'm going to switch to our screen share so we can go through our tracker. So we have an Excel tracker which tracks every single spend of the company. You need to understand what you're spending on so that you can truly manage it and make a profit. So let's switch now. So this is our tracker that we keep on every single property that we manage. So you can see here, we track everything from the rent, so the rental income that we make on the property, plus also what we're spending on. So you can see renovation costs is a big area, which is the pre-investment on your property. We also have agent admin fees if you're working with an agent, and then also security deposits. And then as we go into the life of the property and managing the property, you start to see payments to landlords and other types of expenses such as housekeeping, council tax, internet, etc. But to answer your question, I've just created this summary tab, Nathan. So in terms of this property, our first property, we spent £5,000 initial investment.
Okay, sweet. So what did that £5,000 consist of then?
So for our first property, a lot of this cost was due to the fact that we wanted to convert this into a 4-bedroom. It was originally a 3-bedroom property and it had a massive open space living room. So because we wanted to make that a standalone room, we had to create a stud wall, which came up to around 1,500, which we spent on that. And then the rest of the expenses are really just to furnish the property. So you're looking at bed frames, mattresses, wardrobes, cabinets, getting tradesmen into the property to paint and get the property to a high corporate standard for our tenants.
All right, so Ollie, you've mentioned that we put about a £5,000 investment in this particular property. How would you work out how much your initial investment should be? So for people who are just starting out, how do they know how much investment they should put in the property? Because obviously this is not a property that they own.
Yes.
If they got the money to do so, should they put 10,000, 15, 20,000 pounds into the property? What should they be looking at?
The logic that we try to go with is 6 months of the profit that you'd make from that particular property. So assuming, or our property one, when we did our calculations on our numbers, we were assuming a minimum of 600 profit per month. So what you do is multiply that by 6, which will get you to 3,600. And you will say that is the maximum amount that I would want to spend on my on the property in terms of initial investment. And the reason we do that is because we want to make sure that we break even within 6 months. So if you know what the number you're going to make per month, multiply that by 6, then that should be the amount that you should try to stay within, right? And you can increase that investment if you believe that you can gain more profit from that property. So if you can gain more profit from that property, then that will increase your initial investment. So Nathan, so obviously I mentioned just now the amount that we should have stuck to was 3,600, right? If we went on the 6 months break even, we ended up spending 5,000. Can you explain why and why we decided to do that?
Yeah, good question. So what I would say with that is, firstly, it was our it was obviously our first property, so it was new for us. We were buying things, and I was overspending, and Ollie was telling me not to. So I was kind of getting carried away. Now we wanted to obviously to make the property look as nice as possible. So you're buying lots of nice things. So I think that's something that was a lesson for us in terms of, okay, next time could we get these items a little bit cheaper? I think secondly, I think the reason why our initial investment was a bit higher than what we would have hoped for is because of the stud wall that you already mentioned.
Yeah.
So we knew that would be an additional cost, and that's not something that we would be doing on every property. But we made the decision that we would invest in this stud wall because we knew for the long term that would give us a increased level of profit overall, because we knew that actually that's going to give us a very large room. We're going to be able to rent that room out for a lot higher rate, and therefore it's going to give us long-term increased level of profit. So we made that decision as to why we've put a little bit more in the investment than maybe what our guide would be.
The next area that we should move to is the profit and the return. So if we look at the first 12 months, we're projecting to make around 6,000 of profit for this particular property. One of the areas, because a lot of people will see that only shows a profit of 1,000, so 969. One of the key reasons is just how quickly were we able to get the property fully let, right? I think that's another area that we've learned quite a bit on, in showing that as soon as you get the key, as soon as you sign the contract with the landlord, start advertising your property, because from that moment, you're starting to lose money. So the quicker you can get it fully let, the better your return on investment will be. For the people that don't come from a finance background or don't really understand what return on investment, I try to show a simple calculation for it. It's just basically looking at your profit. So the profit that you make minus the expense, so your initial investment, divided by your investment. So you're just basically looking at incremental profit or return that you're going to make on that investment. So you can see here, year one, we're projecting to make around 19% return on our initial investment, which is really good, because if you think about most of your high street providers and banks, if you have a savings account, you'll be lucky to get 1-2% on that, right?
Yeah,
so
exactly that.
This is a good use of your money. Obviously, it's not passive, right? Like putting your money in a bank, but it's a good return, considering that it's our first year of business.
Yeah, definitely. And I think just to add to that, if you were to buy a property, then generally you're probably still, it's quite difficult to get sort of returns of this sort of these sort of numbers in your sort of first 12 months. So usually they say kind of a good return on your investment with a typical buy to let is 6%, 7%, and 8%. So for us to kind of be looking at 19%, that is definitely one of the huge benefits of the rent to rent tool, where you can kind of have a high level of cash flow and a high level of return on your investment.
So with this particular property, we have a contract with the landlord for 3 years. So if we move over, you can see keeping the initial investment the same, 5,000, which we spent. Then what we have is additional costs. So we put aside 5% of our profit just to maintenance of the property. So if you have a slight leak and you need to get a plumber into the property to fix it, those are the sort of additional costs that you might not anticipate, but you should always keep aside in case it happens during the 3-year contract. Then we have how much you will make the profit and return on the property, and we've also reduced this to 85% occupancy. So assuming for 15% void. So you can see in year 3, we get up to 221% return. So we'll be making from this property around 13K of profit. So really good returns considering the initial investment.
Yeah, so considering we overspent on the investment to still be able to get sort of 13K profit with an estimated 85% occupancy over those 3 years is, I would say, a fantastic return of your investment.
Yep.
And Olu, I see here that you've got a 5-year column.
Yeah, so which we definitely expect after the 3 years, we'll go back to the landlord and extend the terms and conditions of the contract. And if we have this property for 5 years, assuming again the 85% occupancy, we're looking at around 25K. I think it's fantastic returns. You're looking at around 388% based on our initial investment. So this is fantastic returns. And this is where us as a business can start using this capital to then invest in purchasing properties or acquiring more properties.
I hope you guys found that very useful. I think it's really important that you kind of get a true reflection of how much investment can go into a rent-to-rent. I think sometimes you can kind of hear that actually you put no money at all in investment and you can get 1,000% on your returns. It's not like that, and this is a very transparent. We've clearly gone through our numbers with you on our first property, but as you can see, despite not kind of maybe meeting all of the guidelines of what we would have wanted in terms of maybe having a lower initial investment, you can see by the end of our 3-year contract, we are going to be having a return on investment of about over 200%, which is fantastic. And ultimately, if we continue to extend this contract, you can only imagine what our returns can be. As always, guys, please subscribe. Click that subscribe button. If you've got any questions, any comments, please leave them below. If there's anything that you would like us to talk about in any future videos, please also comment them below. We'd love to kind of make sure that we're providing you the content that you're asking for. Hope you guys have enjoyed this video. We will speak to you soon.
Beckley Rose Property Solutions, the master key of property management.